Um, we'll actually wait a couple more minutes before we start so everyone has a chance to join. My name is Haley Wilcox. I'm the president of Women in STEM Club and the vice president of Hope in STEM Club and Honor Society at MSJC. So if you want more information on either of these clubs or if you have any questions, I'll put my email in the chat. And now our president of Hope in STEM, Mahak, will be introducing our guest speaker.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I dressed up as Red Riding Hood today just to make it a little fun. So, Jen Hemmert is an environmental scientist in the Heritage and Wild Trout program. She has worked as a wild trout biologist for the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, CDFW, in the Inland Desert region in Riverside and San Bernardino counties since 2017. Prior to her wild trout work and within the department, she was a reservoir. Sorry if I butcher this, but reservoir fisheries biologist for the same two counties, plus Imperial County since 2011. She has experience in is it Riverine? Again, I butchered it. I'm sorry. Lake.
You got it.
Okay. Lake and mountain meadow ecosystems, and has conducted research related to and is it Andromerus? Anadromous? Okay, yeah. Anadromous fish species of steelhead, spear run, and fall run Chinook salmon in the Sierra Nevada, Bay Delta, and Southern California. Along the journey, a pathway into a science, technology, engineering, and math field can have more challenges and changes in directional course. Contributions to navigational trajectory for Jen included following a passion, taking academic/post-college courses, internships and volunteer opportunities, and multiple different intermediate jobs until finding the best fit. Each STEM professional has a very unique journey, and all are individual, as no one has the same story. Everyone, please welcome Jen Hemmert. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very appreciative of the invite and to speak with you all here today. So I will start by sharing my screen, and it will be a PowerPoint presentation, and we'll go from there. Okay. Can everyone see my PowerPoint and hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I am a wild trout biologist for Riverside and San Bernardino counties. I work for CDFW. I'm located in our Marietta field office. And my email address is my first name dot my last name at wildlife.ca.gov. I have a talk for about 40 minutes, and there will be time at the end for questions. I have a presentation. On the topics of my educational path and volunteering, what path got me to a career as a woman in STEM, and what do I do at my job as a fish biologist? So here is my highlight reel. You have to have a good fish pun in there. I will cover 4 topics, and the section is about my projects with fish species in local streams. First, I will tell you about my passion that led to my academic experience and some different jobs along the way. Next, I will talk about being in STEM from the perspective of a woman in STEM. And this group is a great vocal audience, of course. Thirdly, I will segue into my job and our mission as a state program in the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Lastly, you will learn how you could potentially help with volunteering in future projects within fisheries in the natural resources field. So today, I'm going to cast my rod. Hopefully, I'll set the hook and then I'll reel you in. I want to provide insight into my direction into STEM, how to get an edge on becoming a scientist as a diverse group of future leaders, and how volunteering can help propel you into the next step, and share what those opportunities look like with my work. So I want to open my presentation with my statements that I provided for my talk's direction. Along the journey, a pathway into a STEM field can have many challenges and changes in directional course. The directional changes, of course, can often seem like hiking up a huge mountain to reach a peak, then trying to enjoy a tremendous view from that specific elevation. Well, what do I mean? There are challenges. It may be the class's subject matter, a course load, your major's requirements. Secondly, it could be time management of balancing a schedule as a student. Third, it could be finding a balance between academics and home life. Fourth, it may be the financial costs. And of course, there are many current occurrences in society, such as a pandemic, social unrest, and being a woman or minority, and many others. I say specifically from that specific elevation because you have not stopped climbing when you reach your first peak, and there are more heights to climb. Yes, there will be setbacks, challenges, and minor failures, but those will lead you to success, and another summit is on the horizon. My steadfast goal was to get a degree in biology, and that was honed into at a very early age. As a kid, I wanted to be a marine biologist or a veterinarian. In this slide, I show you this picture for a specific reason, and it represents my first obsession. I have notebooks from grade school with seahorses doodled all over them, and I was obsessed. I had a grade school science teacher who said that if you want to be a scientist in STEM, you can, and you will shape the future. Boom. That concept resonated with me. He was the first person, even including my own family, who are not in science, but in business, that said, you can be a scientist. So I followed that path with direction. My degree is from The Ohio State University in the College of Biological Sciences. My Bachelor of Science degree is specifically in zoology, and I have an emphasis in freshwater fish. That is the one direction that I stuck to. Then I stated, oh, my dog, sorry about that. Then I stated, sometimes I found that I had to upend my own ship and redirect my own navigational compass to reach my goal or endpoint. Now let's upend that boat. That question for me was, what do I do with my degree? It was zoology and focused on fisheries. So the questions that I asked in this was, do I have professional connections to companies or nonprofit employers who hire in my field? Do I have volunteer connections? Do I have academic connections? Do I have other experiences that make me hireable to an employer? Lastly, I asked, do I have some grades that are average that may hold me back from being hireable? So I go back to my last upending boat analogy and question. Do I have jobs that I had pre-college, during college, or post-college that helped me in the professional or nonprofit world? So again, I'm telling my story to you. I had a job at the Columbus Zoo my junior year of college. It was an animal educational presentation staff position, similar to what Jack Hanna talks about when he's out talking to the general public. It's to educate the general public on conservation, but mine was on zoo grounds and not on network TV. I had a chemical lab experience for an international plastics company located in Cincinnati. It was my first post job after college. I was a special education teacher for 4th to 6th graders in science and math. I worked as a lab technician in a cancer research pharmacology department lab at Ohio State with animal studies. So the second question on my upending was, do I have volunteer connections? Again, this is my story. I volunteered at an animal clinic, cleaning kennels, caring for cats, and walking dogs. I was an AmeriCorps member for a national service position working with water quality related to salmon and steelhead in California. That was my first employment in the state of California. I volunteered for a state agency on a fisheries field technician position that looked at data for a PhD student's doctorate on fish movements. That was volunteer and unpaid. I am on the board of directors for a California statewide nonprofit for salmon conservation and fisheries science. And my third question on that upending my boat, do I have academic connections? I was in the zoology club as a student. I worked for Ohio State as a field assistant on Lake Erie, one of the Midwest Great Lakes, as a TA for college level freshwater ecology and biology classes. I also taught 4th through 12th graders lake science and biology at that position. I worked as an associate research technician on 2 jobs at UC Davis in California. This was my second set of employment in California. One was on meadows and one was on a statewide watershed report card. The fourth question of my upending the boat, do I have other experiences that make me hireable to an employer? I had interest to keep learning, to always be a student of continuing education. I would try many different jobs to find what was the right fit at the time. I left every experience to gain knowledge and the desire to move into the next job to get something out of it. My last question that upends my boat, do I have grades that were average that may hold me back as potentially a hireable concern? Well, the answer is yes. No one is perfect. I was better at some classes than others and really focused on classes that were in my area of interest. It was great to take classes to see, it was great and is great to take classes where your interests and passions are. But my recommendation is not to get too broad that you are average at everything and possibly setting yourself up not successfully for your major. You want to excel beyond what is required and not just be taking what is the bare minimum. Take as many classes offered in your major as possible, even if they vary in subject. In science, many types of degree hold more weight. For instance, you didn't have to have a PhD or master's degree when I was a student, but now they are more emphasized in certain fields. Do your research to understand what hiring requirements are for jobs and use Google as your friend. I know that for the state of California, most, if not all jobs to be an environmental scientist like me, at minimum require a Bachelor of Science. not a Bachelor of Arts or an associate's degree. And going back to my statements in my talk description, contributions to my navigational trajectory included following a passion, taking academic post-college classes, internships, and volunteer opportunities, and multiple different intermediate jobs until finding a best fit. I believe that I best described that in my last description of my slide. Each STEM professional has a very unique journey and all are individual. No one has the same story. But hopefully the rest of my talk about my job additionally shines light on my impact of being a woman in STEM. The Heritage Wild Trout Program mission. So what do? We protect and enhance California's heritage and wild trout resources while providing opportunities for high quality angling. So to quickly dissect the mission, the first part is to protect fish from harm of negative impacts from the environment itself and human land uses. The second part is the big picture. It is to make conditions more suitable for fish, monitor and study all aspects of the landscape and water and biota. All of these habitats, fish species themselves, bugs in the water called invertebrates, water flows and water quality conditions matter. So lastly, to do both steps 1 and 2, we create the end goal of creating the best angling experience for the recreationalists and general public. So wild trout or heritage trout, I'll define them both. Wild trout are from a hatchery that CDFW stocks, and they are no longer fish that are stocked into waters. They are naturally reproducing fish that do not need our help to save the populations by us stocking fish into the waters. Heritage trout are trout that are native to California. They naturally reproduce in streams and in lakes. And I'm holding a rainbow trout. It's a very small one, about 3 inches at the very bottom towards the water. So what projects do I need help with? And the need help with has a new asterisk next to it. And that is related to the fact that with the pandemic, we are not accepting citizen volunteers until we get a CDFW policy change about COVID work-related restrictions. But I've listed our projects below that require volunteers. We're hiking waters to learn stream access and ground truth entire streams. We're hiking into fire-affected areas to collect info about post-fire effects to the streams. We have angler survey boxes that are out on 2 wild trout waters of Deep Creek and Bear Creek. And anglers provide information that we analyze. We're checking remote water temperature loggers and doing their redeployments. I'm in the process of reworking my deployment technique this year and will be deploying loggers soon. We're electrofishing for both trout and non-trout streams for surveys. I say non-trout because sometimes our best management is to remove species that are invasive. So if any of these pique your interest, we'll be able to incorporate volunteers again after COVID restrictions have changed. And things are fluidly changing. There are always more projects, and more project aspects that I need help with are measuring and handling fish. You'll see more photos of that coming up in the presentation. Field data recording. helping with habitat typing of stream reaches, which means determining what types of different gravel and stream hydrology there are, helping with snorkel and hook and line trout surveys, photo monitoring, and GPSing field sites with field notes. So we've been considered essential employees since the beginning. And once protocols have been provided by the state, we'll reopen to fieldwork with volunteers, but we've been out there working the entire time. We've been out in limited numbers, so don't worry. Fisheries and natural resources have not been neglected by CDFW during this health crisis. So this is a picture of backpacker electroshocking a stream. This is a very large stream. It is Hot Creek near Mammoth in Mono County. There are many different jobs, and you can see it takes many different volunteers. There are people holding nets, netting fish. There are staff wearing electroshocking backpacks that are specialized electroshocking equipment to stun fish. There are live car carriers holding trash cans in the water where the fish are placed. There's a line of block netters in the back, and they're clearing out debris as we're stirring it up in the stream, but not pictured as our fish processing crew that's taking information about the individuals collected. And so these surveys are critical to assessing fish populations within certain habitats. Here's the picture in a smaller stream, right in your backyard in San Bernardino County. The biggest difference is there are fewer people needed for smaller streams. After netting the fish, they're put into containers, similar like in-stream aquariums, and we take information on them. We also are moving through flowing water, and vegetation can oftentimes be stirred up, but there's no line of net blockers here. The fish are removed after each pass, held separately, and worked up for measurements and determined how large they are, how healthy they are, and what species are there. The fish are not harmed by this measure, and they are just done temporarily and then resume swimming after they are placed into their buckets. So the best part about this is we train everyone from staff and volunteers on site. No experience is needed, just wading skills and interest in hiking is all you need. We hike to many places to assess flow and habitats, and we try to reach the streams by the easiest and fastest entry point. If you love to hike into new places and have new adventures, this is definitely a cool task for you. We look up streams and trails on Forest Service maps, CalTopo online, Google Maps, Google Earth, trail apps, you name it. We execute a hike and we take down photo documentation as well as to determine what are the best trails to access different places. So when it's safe, we hike into fire affected areas to collect information post fire effects. And this is very pertinent now with the increase in fire frequency and also as well with climate change. We're very critical to take documentation on what's happened to the landscape in a burned area and the amount of fish survivorship that happens post fire. We find that we need to move quickly to do a fish rescue before upcoming rains happen because they can impact the fish in the streams. This is a map of the total area of the Cranston fire that affected the Mountain Center area up Highway 38 and 243 and located south of Idlewild. The Cranston fire affected all streams to the east, south, and southwest of Idlewild. And on top of this fire, Idlewild had major fires located to the north of the town and located south of Banning during the year before. These are photos of Coldwater Creek after the Holy Fire near Glen Ivy Hot Springs. Due to the timing of this fire in late August, we performed an emergency fish rescue by the end of September to relocate the native rainbow trout out of the stream. They're one of 3 populations located in Southern California that are native to California. They were moved to a CDFW hatchery temporarily and then released into a new stream during the following spring. This watershed has currently repaired itself, but after this fire, so the repair has actually occurred where we've returned these fish back to this stream. Although from the photos, it looks very impaired and would take a lot of time to repair. There were hundreds of thousands of cubic feet of material that moved through the canyon during the rains post-fire. So collectively, within 3 years, 3 major fires impacted trout streams in 2018 as just a single year to call out: the Cranston Fire, the Holy Fire, the Valley Fire, and I managed the fisheries that were all impacted. It was a very busy fire season. So helping out with snorkeling and hook and line trout surveys, we use many methods of passive sampling, and two types are snorkeling and hook and line surveys. For snorkel surveys, we need data recorders while staff swim through pools that can be feet deep or inches deep. And we're going through these waters of pools, which are deeper water, or shallower waters called riffles or runs on our bellies. For hook and line surveys, it's a traditional fly fishing type of method, and we use our gear that we can provide. And all we ask is that you record your catch info, and if you release your fish, to let us know that. So there are 2 people in this pool. I'm in the shadow on the left-hand side of this pool, and a person from the Forest Service is on the right, also snorkeling in the pool. So lastly, I just have a couple slides of photos of fish that we have collected in our surveys. So just to give an idea that although Southern California has less water, just due to the nature of being a more arid and dry area in California, there are many high elevation and moderate elevation streams that hold different fish species. This is a picture of a rainbow trout in Mountain Home Creek, and the picture that is on the right would be East Fork Mountain Home Creek. So we're hiking into beautiful places and doing a very important job. This slide is us working up a brown trout that is on the right-hand side. And this is where we're taking measurements of information from the tip of its nose to the end of its tail, determining what species of fish it is, and also as well how healthy it is. And on the left-hand side is a photo of the South Fork Santa Ana near the meadow towards the headwaters where this fish was captured. So I hope that with my talk, I've been able to give you some information about how my journey began, how I was able to navigate those directional changes that will occur within trying to achieve your goal to have a career in STEM. So with that, I will take any questions happily. I do apologize because my video camera doesn't link up with the app or any other type of services available. So I won't be able to actually turn on my camera to be able to answer any questions, but I would be interested to hear if you have anything that you'd like to ask. Thank you so much.
First, I want to say thank you for your presentation. It was awesome. I wanted to know when volunteer opportunities are available, where would we find them to sign up for or volunteer for?
That is a great question. On the last slide, I do have my contact information. And the way that we do sign up volunteers is by anyone who is interested, please email me at my email address, which is my first name dot my last name at wildlife.ca.gov. And what I do is I have a short list of people who have contacted me who have interest in volunteering. And when opportunities when the policies allow us to have volunteers, then I send out an email to the interested volunteers who have signed up by emailing me about what we have currently coming up on our schedule, and also of the different examples of types of opportunities that I listed that people could help out with projects, what the opportunity is for that date.
Okay, yeah, and I actually had another question. I can't remember it right now, but if anyone else has any questions, you guys can jump in and type it in the chat or unmute yourself. There's actually a question in the chat. How old do you have to be to volunteer?
So that's also a great question. Currently with the state of California, we can have volunteers that range in age of being younger students through adults and retirees. The benchmark that we have for the younger students is that we try and look at students that are probably in high school age or above. We do have a form that parents do sign for allowing us to have consent to have people that are in high school to come out with us. And everyone does sign our volunteer form when they come out to volunteer. So pretty much anyone who is from high school age to a retiree works as a volunteer for us.
Awesome. And for the volunteer opportunities, are they all year long, or are they certain times a year? I'm assuming they're all year long whenever they're available.
So that's a really great question. Our season that we work in the field starts in the late winter, early spring. So probably about March, and that will continue all the way until we are really in that high rainy season. So could be the end of October, early November. That's the window where we have most of our outdoor field like projects going on. And then in the winter months, we transition to writing up some reports that are based on the data that we've collected. So really about March through October, November. But that's a really great question.
I have a question. So I know you showed pictures and spoke mostly about some Riverside, San Bernardino County, but well, I guess it is Riverside County, but I was wondering, because you're in Marietta, do you do studies over like in Tanaha. I know when I hike there, I see the informational signs about steelhead and rainbow trout. And when my husband and I were hiking and we went down to a dry creek bed and we actually saw like dead fish, we could see like the skin. So just curious, if that's kind of your area too, if you do some studies over there.
Yeah, we do work within our, so our department, the way that they break up the state is by counties. And so that's kind of the geographic boundary to which each region is organized by. But we know that nature as well as to crosses boundaries. So whether it's going to be a road or a stream bed or a reservoir, a lake, there's a lot of places that actually end up crossing boundaries. And so I do work over in that area. And then I work with the other fish biologist who is also the bordering counties for anything that crosses over in terms of waters that have like a presence in more than one county. So there's a lot of crossover that happens between myself and other local biologists. And so I have worked over there. We work quite a bit over in like the Corona, kind of the edge of Riverside County, headed towards Orange County. And we do work over there. So it looks like there's a question in the chat that is, let's see. Yeah, so the question was if in the context of this presentation, is it only about wildlife that's native to California? And for preserving it, in the context of preserving it. And so that's a very good question. So California native species are endemic to the state itself. And those as well can be a geographic range that ranges outside of just our state of California. And so our department does look at native species in a context of conservation. And some of the species that are native to California are in, like after surveys and assessments, can be deemed as either, in a good standing population number, in a threatened number. So their numbers are declining, but it's not to the progression of where they're going to go extinct. Or they're endangered to where they're reaching that upper threshold to where they're getting closer towards extinction because the populations are getting so low. So as a state agency overall, we do a lot of work that is related to native species to California. We also have a lot of non-native species here in California, and those range from everything from fish to invertebrates to plants to all kinds of different species that are not native to California. Those species are evaluated, and oftentimes there may be measures that are taken to actually remove invasive species, is what they're called when they're not native. And those species are removed due to trying to encourage the recruitment of the native species. One way that I will kind of segue, that's kind of the caveat to that, is like, for instance, some of the bodies of water that are in the state are not naturally occurring. They're reservoirs that are man-made due to dams being built and changing water courses to where streams can't flow naturally. And in those bodies of water are actually oftentimes can be found non-native warm water fishes that are non-native west of the Mississippi. And those fish are managed for recreational like opportunities. So in fisheries, at least we do look at the native populations as well as to the non-native populations, whether they're a recreational non-native species. And those fish are not removed from places like reservoirs that are man-made that are meant for recreation. So it's kind of a long-winded answer about the natives and non-natives, but many times the non-natives can have impacts to the environment, to the ecology, to the food web of no matter where they are, whether they're in land or water. And so those are evaluated.
Question. So I was wondering, when you guys go in after like the fires, are you guys going in and just like reporting the damage, or are you moving fish if there's still body of fish that are alive?
Yeah, so so we have many partnerships that we work with in terms of federal and state and nonprofit. And so when a fire occurs in the forests, the Forest Service is the land managers of the land itself. And so for fires, they do assessments called a BAER assessment. It's BAER. And they determine what level of damage has occurred on the landscapes and do a lot of mapping and modeling to see how much sediment has been exposed due to vegetation of grasses, trees, shrubs, anything the fire has burned that's been removed, how much sediment will move throughout, for instance, like a landscape or a canyon. And they do the assessment on the ground to understand what the damage that has occurred. As our department with Fish and Wildlife, our job is to manage the fish populations or the wildlife that is like terrestrial. And so then our job is to then assess what the impacts have been of the fire to, for instance, like the stream to the fish population. And so we come in to look at how the biology was affected.
If there was like minerals in the soil that got stirred up and then affected the fish.
Right. So yes. So
okay, cool.
So yeah. So they've done the assessment to see how much material will move, and the way the material is going to move is by rain on the hillsides. So Forest Service has done the assessment on how much material will move. And then we understand that if that much material moves, what the impacts will be in the stream to the fish. And so if there is a highly fire impacted area to where, for instance, trout populations will be in harm's way, then we come in and we will remove fish to relocate them. The best ideal place is within the same watershed that hasn't burned, because that's within their like geographic area. If there isn't a suitable place that's in a nearby geographic area in the same watershed, then we'll sometimes move them to our hatchery to then find a new home for those fish. And for instance, like the bobcat fire that was over in the West Fork San Gabriel, they found a suitable stream habitat that hadn't burned to where they could move the native rainbow trout and other native fish species that was in the same watershed. For instance, the Coldwater fire that happened, Holy Fire that happened in the Coldwater Canyon, that fire burned a majority of that watershed and there was not a suitable habitat that hadn't burned. So we moved those fish to our hatchery temporarily, and we assessed what other stream we could find that would be a suitable home for those native rainbow trout to go into. So sometimes it's very complicated, but we're definitely boots on the ground working quickly after fire. It's very important for us to assess the immediate impacts that could happen to fish and wildlife.
There's actually another question in the chat. Why a zoologist degree and not marine biology?
Yeah, so that's a great question. That is where you would say that my probably initial passion to be a dolphin trader and to work with native marine mammals out in the ocean did have a pivot and shift. And the reason that I ended up studying zoology was that I had looked at some different colleges, and I'm from the Midwest. So being from the Midwest, you're landlocked in terms of not being in a coastal zone. So looked at colleges that were going to be, say, in Florida and, Georgia and other places, and determined that I wanted to stay closer to home. So is that cost benefit analysis of, do I want to go to school out of state or stay in state? And Ohio State does not offer a marine biology program. So I ended up studying fish, but they were freshwater. And then the Great Lakes being on the upper border of Ohio was an excellent place to then be able to work out in the field.
I had a question. I don't know if this was previously asked, but how long does it take to get a environmental, like the degree that you had taken? So about, what was it, zoology? Haley, if I'm correct, was it zoology? How long does it take?
Yeah, so that's just an undergraduate degree, and so it is 4 years, and so it's just a I for my path and direction, I stayed at one college for my whole college career, and so with that, the university was actually on quarters at that time versus semesters, to which most colleges have segued to nowadays. But it was 4 years. And for anyone who's also listening that, doing classes at one college and transferring to another college is an excellent way to be able to, kind of knock out classes that, maybe, kind of, easy, like might be, the more, sorry, I misspoke, the more, the classes that are going to be completed that you can then transfer to another school. So I'm part of the hiring crew. I'm not a manager to hire anyone specifically, but I lead people who are hired, and I work in the interview process while we're hiring. So I review many, many resumes. We oftentimes can have anywhere from 10 to 35 resumes for one position that opens up. And so what I was going to say is that it's very common for people to go to one university, or more common than that is for people to have gone to more than one university and then be able to either, transfer to get a second degree by transferring to the other school, or completing like a bachelor's degree at that second school. So, so what I was going to say is just pretty much that, going to more than one college, it is very, very common. So with me, I stayed at one college.
I had another one. Again, I don't know if this was asked, so I apologize, but are you like, did you do graduate school as well, or what exactly?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have taken some continuing education classes, so some graduate level classes, but I have never finished a formal degree. And oftentimes when you're looking at a different or what career you would like to go into, sometimes there are prerequisites of where you have either just an undergraduate degree and experience, master's degree, PhD. And so it is very important for, kind of to get that kind of general idea of, maybe what requirements might be needed for you to kind of get to your maybe goal or in that direction of kind of to a position or career that you're very most interested in. So yes, so I had considered to do a graduate degree, but I didn't fully commit and just did more professional experiences after I graduated.
Okay, I don't know if anyone else has any questions. I think you've answered quite a few, and I don't want to cut anyone off if you have any more questions. But we can wait a couple minutes to see if anyone else has any other questions, but I don't have anything.
I'm done. I just want to say thank you for coming out, Jen. Thank you. That was really awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah, and I guess I just wanted to highlight just that how you get into a career is going to be the path that fits best for you. Stay motivated, stay engaged, connect with other professionals so that you can, whether it's in all different types of sectors, and also to, all of the things like volunteering and really gaining experience goes extremely far when a person is looking to hire someone in the STEM field. And so follow your dreams, follow your passions, and never let anyone tell you no, just reach for the stars. So I want to really leave everyone to feel encouraged. And I'm really honored that you would let me speak to your group. Hopefully I've answered your questions. If you have any more questions, you can follow up with me. Of course, my email address, there's also my cell phone number. And I think that especially being women in STEM, we are a unique perspective that needs to be brought to the table because all views that are different contribute to the end all discussion, and also to create change that I think is very positive and time pertinent. And I think that it is really everyone on this call that's a future leader in sciences. And I wish you all well on your next endeavors and on your academic careers. And if I can help in any way, please do reach out and email me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.